and welcome to the very first episode of our podcast, Mr. and Mrs. Millennial. I'm your co-host, Emily Sneed Hearing, and right beside me is the other co-host, Brian Hearing.
Hello.
I almost was going to say hi, Brian, but I decided against it because I knew exactly what he would say. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
Oh, I can't do that. You're never wrong.
Well, it's our first time ever doing podcasting, but we're both pretty excited about it. For me, I really love doing creative projects, and this is just another project that I can figure out what to do and what to work with on this. But Brian's actually the one who started this idea. What made you decide to do a podcast?
Well, we were playing games a couple weekends ago during our weekly game night, and somebody mentioned that, hey, you have a good voice. It sounds like you should do a podcast. So I started looking into it and trying to figure out, well, can I do a podcast? What does it take? And put a couple things together piece by piece, and here we are.
Yeah, it's funny because I listen to a ton of podcasts when I'm cleaning, working out, just working on my projects around the house. And when he suggested to do a podcast, at first I'm like, what? I kind of almost thought he was joking because he didn't really seem like the let's start a podcast type. But I thought it was an interesting idea. I've obviously never done anything like this before. And if you can't tell by this first podcast, I feel like I'm in a job interview right now because I feel like I keep stumbling over my words and repeating the same phrases and whatnot. But I like the challenge.
That's okay. We can brush that out in editing.
Yeah, that might be nice. It was funny. So I have a professional organizing business, or at least one that I'm trying to get off the ground. And on my business Instagram page, I wanted to do a series of Insta stories about organizing my closet. And I told Brian, I said, okay, I'm shutting the door. Don't listen. Don't knock on the door because I feel very self-conscious about just talking out loud into a device. And it took a second for me to warm up to it, but I enjoyed it at the end of the day, even though I'm still not used to hearing the sound of my own voice. That's why I think this podcast is an excellent exercise for me.
Yeah, having talked on the phone for a long time through my job, I can tell you it doesn't get any better hearing the sound of your voice. I still cringe whenever I hear myself.
Oh, good to know. And I guarantee you, we are not the only ones who are like that. I think most people don't like the sound of their own voice.
Yeah, doing test editing of things of me talking has been torturous.
Anytime, like I like to do a lot of videos of my family, and it's always fun watching them. But anytime I'm talking on there, I'm like, "Ooh, fast forward, fast forward. We don't need to hear that." Well, uh, so Brian, talk a little bit more about what your thoughts about what the podcast would be about.
Yeah, so overall, we've got a fairly stable relationship, a pretty good marriage,
Yay.
and and we're both fairly well-adjusted people, and we don't always agree on most things, but we usually keep things civil. And I figured that it's maybe it's not a bad idea to share some of that because there's a lot of things out there at the moment, just in general, where lots of people can't seem to find middle ground, and we're pretty good at that. So maybe if we share a little bit of our middle ground, it might help other people find something.
Yeah, I like that, and it's funny when you mentioned that we have a stable relationship, but we don't agree on a lot of things. I was just talking to my sister Molly yesterday about how uh, Brian doesn't like condiments because we were getting McDonald's and I was going to get him chicken tenders and she said sauces and I said no sauces. It's kind of funny how opposite we are. Brian is zero condiments and I am load up the condiments, like probably almost to a disgusting level. So I just think that contrast is funny.
Hey, the flavor of the dish should stand on its own without condiments, okay?
And I think the flavor of the dish could stand to have a little mayonnaise added to it. I don't know. But it's just, I don't know.
So, where do you think we should go with our podcast from here, or some topics you want to talk about in the long term?
That's the thing. I'm a very type A person. Sure, as my husband, you have not failed to notice. And when you started talking about this podcast, I spent 20 to 30 minutes just jotting down various things that we could talk about, just about our life, not even diving into the world outside of our little apartment. And I think just talking about sort of our jobs and how we got to where we are in that sense, what our plans for the future are, what our life is like, and what our life is like now because of COVID, because we are not obviously the only ones whose lives have changed because of that. The podcast that I listen to, the reason why I like them so much is that yes, they'll have guests on and they'll talk about current events. But a lot of times it's just let's talk about what's going on with me and bring the guest on what's going on with you. And then talk about how that's changed you or made you different or something about your perspective. And to me, those are the most enjoyable podcasts to listen to.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think we're both pretty open to if someone had a specific topic they wanted to talk about, then we could make that work.
Yeah, I'm open to anything. I like to talk with people. I'm a very shy person when you first meet me, but once we start talking, it can be hard to shut me up. So I like to talk to people, hear about things. Yeah, we're open to anything for this podcast. And that's actually why we named it what we named it. You can talk a little bit more about why you didn't decide to make it, oh, a real estate podcast, or this is my specific job podcast.
Hmm. Yeah, it's nice to have that flexibility in there.
Well, it's interesting because when he brought up the topic of a podcast, I thought fantastic, but then I thought, well, like, what's the name gonna be? And he's like, I'm gonna make this a contest. So we voted it, mostly him, but on our personal Facebook pages, and the reward was $20 for a name, and you had to like and share the usual social media contest
Hmm.
type of rules. And I thought we weren't getting a lot of bites. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I found out that my sister sent Brian this huge list of names, and it honestly took my breath away for a second because I'm like, girl, put in some work right there. And so we narrowed it down, and Mr. and Mrs. Millennial really stood out to us because we're married, so the Mr. and Mrs. and we're both millennials, and I think I identify with that a bit stronger than Brian does, but he's still one himself, so I thought the name fit.
Yeah. Well, and plus, I think a lot of people waited until the very end of the contest to submit their names.
Mm.
So we had a whole bunch of people at the very end just throwing names out there. And it's like, and nobody submitted just one name. So
Mhm.
it's like, oh, things kind of morphed and mutated, and here's where we're at now. So,
I think that makes sense. There's someone I follow on Instagram who does monthly giveaways, and you have to like all her posts for that month. So super easy, right? I even have the post notifications turned on for her. But it never fails on like the 29th or the 30th of the month. I'm like, oh crap. And I just go, and she must see 20 likes from me in like the span of 60 seconds. I'm like, the contest is almost over. So I could see how that
yeah,
happened.
I think that's how most people do it.
Well, one of the reasons we actually have the time to do this podcast is we're still going on with all the COVID stuff. Fortunately, I feel like we're maybe seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't want to speak too soon, but still, not much is changing for us right now.
Yeah, hopefully not for too much longer, but yeah, we can't really control that a whole lot.
It's been middle of March, I think, since all of this started.
Yeah, so 2.5 months.
Yeah, because for me, the school district I work in closed March 16th. And I know there was COVID stuff going on before that, but that's kind of when it not only affected our community a lot more, but then it directly affected our lives a lot more than just seeing something on the news and whatnot.
Hmm. And I think the lockdown didn't happen until the 20th, because I remember it was like a day or so before I got my real estate
Yeah,
license.
that was an interesting and slightly stressful couple of weeks because I'm a substitute, so if I don't work, I don't get paid. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get on unemployment, try to get that. I knew Brian was going to be testing for his real estate license, and even though the housing market was very unknown, at least he'd be able to do something. And he got his testing done uh, the last business day, basically before they closed, and just everything was done just in the nick of time,
Hmm.
which was like, oh my god, I don't want to think about what could have happened if just a day later with anything. But you're right, the actual shelter in place orders were not put into place until a couple weeks later.
Yeah.
But we're going to be doing future podcasts talking more about our like life in COVID, if you will, experience, because that's what's going on right now. That's what's going to be going on for the foreseeable future, even as progress starts to be made at getting back to a new normal. It's not going to go away entirely for the foreseeable future.
And I'll be curious to see what everybody else has to say about this, because I think that while it seems like it's our own unique experience here, I think a lot of other people have very similar situations to us.
Oh, it's very easy, at least for me, to feel like I'm in this bubble. We're in our little apartment, just the two of us and our cat, and we still see like my parents and we've seen his parents, so we're not totally isolated from everybody, but we're not seeing friends in person, we're not going to work, barely going out, like picking up groceries and a doctor's appointment there. So we feel very isolated. It's an odd feeling. You're right. I think people have the same similar experiences to all of that. Definitely be interested in hearing more of people's perspectives and what's going on with them in COVID life. So I guess we can also talk a bit more about us. We've sort of introduced ourselves and who we are and whatnot, but obviously we're a married couple. We have been married for about 2.5 years and been dating for I think 2027, over 7 years. We've been together over 7 years. He likes to joke. He always likes to do a year behind because he knows it ticks me off. But I know when we started dating because I made a scrapbook about it because I am that type of person. So I've got the details, buddy. Trick me.
Well, that doesn't mean I'm not going to still try, though.
He's a big button pusher. So keeps everything exciting, I guess. And we're just married. We're trying to keep everything going in our life. It was a lot easier, obviously, before COVID. No kids yet, but that's definitely in our future. I've got a bit more baby fever than he does, but I think that's kind of to be expected.
Well, and we're pretty normal in a lot of respects, really, and I think that's part of the appeal here is that we're just normal people. And it's easy enough to relate to the things we're talking about because most people have gone through them as well.
That's what we were talking about when it came to this podcast is we don't want to come on here and be like, well, this is the opinion and we don't want to hear anything else about it. It's we go through a lot of things and we're bet our next paycheck whenever that comes. Somebody else has gone through this exact same experience. And if not, I want to hear about what's different. It is something you've gone through that maybe we haven't, and just share those stories and connect with people around us. We'll be starting out with bringing as many family and friends on as guests as they'll allow and go from there. It'll be interesting to get our parents on here.
Oh, yeah. And if anyone has anything they want to talk about specifically, you're more than welcome to have you on the show. So just let us know, reach out to either of us, and we'll see if we can set something up.
And I love a good, I don't know if it's called a pun or something, but we are fully aware of the, I guess, stereotype we're filling of, yes, we started a podcast during quarantine. You know, we're not the only ones. And if you know anything about me, you know that I fit that type of stereotype to a T. So I'm okay with it. And I'm not at all surprised about it.
Yeah, well, it is what it is, so we're not going to fight our nature on this one.
Yeah, but feel free to like give us crap about it. It's fine because I think it's hilarious. So I'm okay with it. We're gonna be getting social media going, making sure that it's super easy for you to find us, super easy for you to reach out for us. Something that personally irritates me is when hard to contact someone or get in touch with someone who's got a public platform and they want suggestions, but they never seem to be there. Want to be open for any suggestions. Talk to us, even if you don't want to be on the show, but you just want to tell us a topic you want to hear about. Fantastic. Let us know.
And we definitely have some really interesting topics and people lined up, so make sure to stay tuned.
Yeah, you'll definitely want to hear the podcast where my sister is on it because I guarantee you that's going to be hilarious.
Oh boy.
Guarantee you. Right, well,
I think that about wraps it up.
gonna go get some Sonic for dinner and watch some Jersey Shore, so we're super stoked about that. Big things happening over here, guys.
Jersey
Big
Day.
things. It's Jersey days, y'all. I'm so glad I got him into that.
Well, this has been our first podcast. Always spay and neuter your animals.
Oh my god. I was gonna go for the stereotypical stay safe out there, stay healthy. I guess that works two ways.
A little bit of both.
Alright, we'll talk to you next time.